All right, are you guys ready to prep for your baby's first 10 days of baby-led weaning? Hi, I'm Katie Ferraro. I'm a registered dietitian. I specialize in baby-led weaning. I'm a mom of 7, and I'm a fan of the plan. I gotta be honest, when I had just one baby, I didn't really have a schedule or a plan. And then I had 2 sets of multiples, a set of quadruplets and a set of twins. We had 7 kids, 3 and under. I was all about the plan because, as I've learned, wholesome real food doesn't magically appear on your family's table unless you're actually preparing it. And so this is a big pain point for a lot of parents when they start solid foods. They're like, what are the foods that I'm actually going to feed? So in this video, I want to share some ideas on how you can get ready for the first 10 days. And hang tight, watch till the end, because I'm going to give you a checklist of things you can go through. So for you planners out there, if you like checking things off the list, here's what you need to do to get ready for the first 10 days of baby-led weaning. All right, why 10 days? Well, 10 days is like 2 work weeks is the way I think about it. I teach a 5-step feeding framework where we introduce your baby to 5 new foods each week. I have a 100 first foods list. There are 5 categories in it. We pick 1 food from each of the categories. There's fruits, vegetables, starchy foods, protein, and the allergenic foods. And if you stick to this rotation, here's what's going to happen. You are automatically going to be offering your baby foods that have a variety of different nutrients. Okay, I love fruits and vegetables as much as anyone, but there's no iron in there. So when you get to the starchy foods, when we start doing whole grains, and the protein foods, if your family eats meat and we're doing meat, your baby's getting iron. They're getting fiber. They're getting vitamin C. And then we're going to be putting the allergenic foods in there too. So you're doing all these different nutrients. You're introducing the allergenic foods if you follow this framework. Your baby's trying different textures. You yourself might even be exploring some new foods on your own. Maybe you're not a huge eater with a big, wide palate, but a lot of parents say they love this approach because it makes them try new foods as well. Each week, what I generally recommend is over the course of the weekend, especially if you work, just pick out what the 5 foods are that you're going to have for the next week. Now, if you're super organized, you can do 2 weeks at a time because truth is, you can pick the foods out, but if you don't actually have them at your house, you're not going to be making them. So sometimes I go 2 weeks ahead and I'm like, oh, I need to order this kind of weird whole grain, or I got to look at a special store for that. Again, I don't want you to bend over backwards. You're not buying a bunch of weird foods here, but sometimes they might be foods that you don't have on hand. So pace yourself a week or 2 weeks out so you can see which 5 foods am I doing this week, which 5 foods am I doing next week. Now, where do you get the foods from? You've got to go grocery shopping, okay? Some of these foods from the 100 First Foods list you might be able to order online. A lot of them you might already have on hand. I think the pantry is a fabulous place to find a lot of great baby-led weaning foods. You probably already have a ton of these foods in your house. I actually have a free feeding guide called the Baby-Led Weaning Pantry Planner. I'm going to link it up in the description for this video. You can download that. The checklist people love this one. It's pages of the different categories inside of your pantry and foods that will work for baby-led weaning. See what you already have on hand and then take the list with you to the store to buy a few more of these foods so that you can be ready when it's time to start solid foods with baby-led weaning. All right, so the big day has come. You are starting solid foods. Start out with something easy like a fruit or a vegetable. Cut it into strips about the size of your adult pinky finger. Put it in a suction mat or a bowl. Offer it to your baby. And don't be surprised if nothing happens. Okay, parents will be like, oh my gosh, my baby's not eating. Guess what? They need lots of time to learn how to eat. It's also okay if they're not eating because most of your baby's nutrition when you just start out, it's still coming from breast milk or formula. You got to give your baby lots of time to practice learning how to eat. My suggestion to you when you start solid foods is even though this might be something you want to make a momentous occasion out of, it's not a 3-ring circus. Okay. If you are the primary feeder, you're going to be wanting to be there with your baby alone. I know my husband used to come in when I was feeding the babies and be like, are you sure they can eat that? And I was like, do you even know what I do for a living? If you're not going to be supportive, I don't need you here in the kitchen. And a lot of parents would agree that being there, whoever's the primary feeder with the baby one-on-one until you get comfortable with your baby's ability to eat a few foods safely, that is really important. Okay. Once you got a few foods under your belt, then invite grandma in or your partner, whoever else to watch. But babies really can sense stress and you might be stressed out at the beginning. You might be nervous about your baby gagging and you've maybe been practicing how to respond. I've got a bunch of great videos about what to do when your baby gags on food because it's going to happen. Be sure to subscribe here to the YouTube channel because each week I put out 2 new videos and lots of good gagging videos coming your way. It's a weird thing to watch, but it's another preparation thing you can do. Watching babies gag on food from other videos and then watching them recover on their own, it can give you so much confidence in your baby's ability to do the same. But my tip there, do it by yourself solo for a couple of days till you get some foods down and then invite other people in. So you do day 1. Let's say you do a new fruit. Baby tries it for 15 or 20 minutes. Day 2, offer a new vegetable. All right. By day 3, you've got 3 foods under your belt. So start rotating those familiar foods from days 1 and day 2 back into the meal. So here's how I do this. I take a 20-minute feed. I cut it in half. The first 10 minutes, I offer the baby the new food of the day. Let's say you're doing buckwheat as the whole grain and the starchy food on day 3. Okay. For the first 10 minutes, serve the baby the buckwheat. And then for the second 10 minutes of that meal, swap in a mat. This is the easy peasy mini mat, the one that I use, and then put 2 familiar foods from the previous day and then the new food from today. Those 3 foods, just 3 foods. More than that can be super overwhelming to your baby, and let your baby explore that more traditional meal pattern. This way you're continuing to offer new foods, but then you're cycling in the familiar foods from previous days. All right, if you're starting with solid foods, you have to be prepared for some changes in your baby's diaper. Okay, now, at the very beginning, when they're not actually eating that much, you might not see a lot of changes, but as your baby slowly starts to pick up speed, you will notice your baby having a little bit of constipation. And most of the constipation that parents describe is totally typical and what we would expect, right? Your baby's gut has only ever had milk in it for the first 6 months of its life, and now you're putting all these different compounds and these proteins and these fibers, and it's not that they can't digest it, it's just the muscles are getting, they're getting worked out a little bit differently, and your baby might be a little bit stopped up, okay? I've got some great tips for you on how to prevent constipation. I'm going to link one of the most heavily trafficked articles from our website about constipation to tell you the difference between what's problematic and what's expected. But at the end of the day, constipation is going to be an inevitable side effect of your baby starting solid foods. And for the most part, it's not a sign that anything's wrong. Just expect to see less frequent bowels, and they're going to become a little bit more formed as your baby starts to replace milk with food as a way to get nutrition. During the beginning of baby-led weaning, your baby's milk feeding schedule should stay the same. Okay, some parents are like, oh, I'm going to start dropping bottles so the baby feels hungry. No. We do not do that early on in baby-led weaning. Your baby doesn't eat in response to hunger at 6 months of age. Keep the milk feed the same. But here's a tip. If your baby has a particularly sensitive gag reflex, those of you who have this baby, you're going to know what happens is if the baby's belly is super full of milk, okay, and then they start trying a new food, like let's say you're trying a new meat, like lamb or pork, and your baby gags on that, which is fine, a particularly involved gag could cause the baby to vomit. And you should expect a little bit of vomiting. I would say over the course of 6 months, most typical babies are going to vomit 2 or 3 times. If your baby's vomiting every meal or every day, that's not typical. And a lot of times the vomit that we see is because the baby's belly is too full of milk. So especially if you're bottle feeding. This is rarely a problem if you're breastfeeding because volume-wise, they just don't eat that much. But like if you pump your baby full of a 6-ounce bottle and then put them down at the table and they gag on some pork, the contents of the stomach are going to make a resurgence or a reappearance. So I suggest building in a 1-hour pad between the end of the milk feed and the beginning of the solid food feed. So I said don't change your schedule. I mean, don't drop any milk feeds at 6 or 7 months of age. You might have to just move the schedule around a little bit, especially for those bottle-fed babies. So you're building in that pad, which will give some time to allow the baby's stomach to empty so that when you try the foods, if they gag, they don't throw up. So in closing, for the first 10 days, set realistic expectations for yourself, okay? Don't stress out if your baby's not eating that much. Recognize that they are going to gag if they're getting food in their mouth, and that's a good thing. Gagging is a natural and necessary part of learning how to eat. If you haven't already done so, make sure you take your Infant Refresher CPR course. I've got a link to a course that I personally take every quarter for work, and I recommend for parents as well. I'm an affiliate for this course, and there's a discount code in there. It's already very affordable. You can knock another $10 off. Get your CPR out of the way so you know what to do if your baby chokes, but also know the difference between gagging and choking. I've got a whole 1-hour video workshop called Baby-Led Weaning for Beginners that teaches you more about the difference between gagging and choking. You can sign up for that at babyledweaning.co, also linked up below the video. Lots of resources for you there if you're just getting started with baby-led weaning. And be sure to subscribe because I put out 2 new videos here on YouTube each week showing you the beginning steps of baby-led weaning, what you can expect down the road, how to make these foods safe, because I want you to have success. It might be slow at the get-go, but stick with it. Trust the process. Your baby will become an independent eater. And I promise you, you will look back and say, doing baby-led weaning was one of the best parenting decisions that I ever made.